Hi, I'm out in the garden today. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about propagation. Propagation is basically making new plants, and there's a few different ways that can happen. As humans, we've sort of taken the cues from nature that we see and observe and have put that into practice commercially to do a lot of the amazing things that we've done with plants as humans. Here's an example behind me with these sunflowers here of sexual reproduction in plants. You get these pollinators moving from flower to flower. Each new seed inside of this sunflower is going to be a new individual based on a combination of the genetics of the other sunflower. And I'm going to take you for a little bit of a tour in the garden. So here we are looking at some garlic. And the garlic we can propagate most readily by using non-seed. Here's a bulb of garlic. And when I planted the garlic, it was just one segment or one clove of the garlic. And now it's become a whole bulb again. So you can see how that can actually create more garlic each time you plant one of the cloves. So let's keep walking around here. If we were to let the garlic go to seed, we could actually get these things, and these are called bulbils, and each one of these little ones here, if I were to break one off, can be planted as well, and that can become a whole new garlic plant. It takes a couple of years to get as big of garlic as we tend to like to use in the kitchen, but that's another example of how we can propagate asexually. So here's another example of some seed. This here, if you look here, we got some romaine lettuce just starting to pop up here. And this is actually coming up from a romaine lettuce that I cut off and we used in the kitchen. And so we can actually propagate vegetatively off of an old romaine that we already cut off. So I'm actually going to get a couple more out of this. If the weather stays cool, then we'll be able to eat it. And then over here is if we let that lettuce go to seed, this is what the seed's going to look like. So if I was to take this, pull some of this out, you can actually see there's a couple little seeds in there. And actually, I'm just going to let them go. Maybe they'll grow. And this plant right here is horseradish. Horseradish can be propagated using the actual root. So if I were to dig down inside of here and I were to take a piece of, let's get in there, right there, if I were to take a piece of that root and plant it again, in fact I'm going to do just that. I'll break that off. And I'm going to lay it right down there in that trench. And you're always supposed to plant it horizontally, so I'm going to do that, and that's going to become a bunch of new plants there. So you can actually use the roots to propagate new plants. And these plants will be identical to the one that I picked here genetically. Another example that we can look at is onions. When we plant onions, we normally plant sets, onion sets. These are some red onions. They're tiny little bulbs about this big. Well, those have now grown to become these larger bulbs, which we're going to store and eat later on in the winter. So you can actually get genetically identical onions to the bulbs that we planted earlier. So we're using roots as a way of propagating. These are some of my tomato plants, and normally I tie them up, but I haven't had time. So just sort of let them lay down. And I want to show you something called layering. Layering is when vegetation or a plant can be buried and we can make new plants out of it. I'm just going to show you how some plants will actually, if you look down underneath there, I think you can see that. Yeah, you can see that. You can see the roots coming down. So this tomato plant is going to send down new roots that are going to be anchoring the plant. If this were to sit down here and we were to cut that off, you would actually get a new tomato plant. So layering. Right here in this rosemary plant, rosemary is known for its ability to to sprout easily from cuttings. So it's also known for layering, and this variety it lays down. It's more of a spreading rosemary, and you can see the new roots growing there on the bottom of this. So layering is pretty important. Okay, so I want to show you another type of way of propagating plants. It's a lot like onions, but if you want to look at these are tulip bulbs. And if you were to plant a tulip, when I planted it, it was a single bulb. And now, if you look, it's actually developed 3 more small bulbs. And so these bulbs what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig a whole bunch of them up and we're going to dry them out, and these can become new tulips to be planted in the fall, which will then sprout in the spring.